Hey guys, DJ Jackson, 8-time world champion, 2-time ADCC vet. And today I want to talk to you guys about more concepts that are going to help us improve our jiu-jitsu faster. Some things that I wish I would have understood better when I first started training. And those things today are, one, leave your ego at the door. Something we always hear, to leave your ego at the door. Every time we walk into a gym, every gym has signs, it's on a poster, just about every gym I've ever been into. But also, it's not being overly sensitive during training. Training is supposed to be a constructive process. So if someone's telling us something, we have to make sure that we're not being sensitive and we're able to ingest that information, because if anyone is trying to help us, they want the best for us. So we need to be able to get the noise out of our head and not feel like they're attacking us, and be able to ingest that information and focus on not making the mistakes that they're trying to prevent us from making again. One of the things that leave your ego at the door didn't explain to me when I first heard about it was not being upset when your instructor is coaching someone else you're training with. And yeah, everyone knows that. If your coach is coaching another partner, or your coach is only one person, maybe your gym has multiple coaches, each coach only has enough time to coach one person at a time. But certain situations, when we're beating the nail, when we're the person getting choked out, we're the person getting beat up, when our coach is still coaching the person who's ahead of us, who's better than us, it kind of feels like, hey, man, this guy's already beating me up. Why won't you help me? And that was one of the things that I had to get out of my head. It's not about that. You know, I got my black belt in 4 years. My instructor has shown me more love than I could possibly ask for. He does that same thing for absolutely everyone who comes into our gym. But still, when I would be in rough positions, when I was getting beat up by some of my teammates, in my head, I was like, oh my God, every time I'm getting beat up, he's trying to coach the other guy? And there can be 1,000 reasons why your coach is coaching the other person and not helping you at that point in time. But none of those reasons are him loving you any less. Especially in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, most of us as instructors, we're family. We're trying to build a family together no matter what. If you're a part of this family, we're gonna try to help absolutely everyone improve. So we have to make sure that we don't get in our own way and stop our own progression with little stupid thoughts like that. It's one of the things I had to learn was, I'm not the center of the universe. There's so many guys at the gym. We have so many world champions. We have so many people training to be world champions. So if I'm in a situation where I'm getting tapped out 5 or 6 times during a training session, and my coach is still coaching the guy who's tapping me out, it's because he's working with that person on a specific thing. He's trying to help that person reach their goals just as well as I've reached mine. And at the time, I hadn't reached all my goals, but my coach has never done anything but show love to me. And I had to understand that he never loved me any less. Just because he's helping out other people, just because he's coaching other people. I know it sounds silly, but when you've been tapped out a bunch of times in a round and you still hear your coach saying get the choke, finish the choke, it kind of seeps into your head hey, what do I do to get out of the choke? So we have to make sure that do not get in your own way and hurt our own progression by being sensitive to silly things as your coach coaching someone else when we're training. We're not the center of the universe. And also, as far as our teammates go, if you're training with a teammate and he taps you multiple times in a round, that doesn't mean that teammate likes you any less. I honestly believe that if a teammate actually loves you, he will tap you as many times as humanly possible. Because if he doesn't, it's going to leave room for people to do that in competition. I remember training with a black belt, a high-level black belt on our team when I was a blue belt. And my coach pulled us up after one of our rounds. He's like, how do you think that roll went? He asked the black belt. And he's like, oh, I did good. I tapped DJ twice. DJ's hard to deal with. it was hard to get him, but I got him twice. My coach was like, "F that. I need you tapping DJ 7 times, at least 7 times minimum per round." I was like, in my head, I was like, please, like you're not gonna tap me 7 times in one round. I was like, that's absurd. Like, you know what I mean? I'm better than that. I was not better than that. And the round started. Actually, maybe I was better than that. He got to about 6. But what our coach wanted him to understand was that he was loafing. He was barely even reaching half of his potential as far as where he needed to be training at to be trying to be a world champion. Just because he was a black belt training with blue and purple belts doesn't mean that he should slack off. In his mind, he's not slacking. We're all friends. He just doesn't want to tap his friends out that many times. But again, if we're really friends, you have no choice but to do that. Because if you don't do that, when we get to competitions, when we get to tournaments, people who aren't our friends, who pay money for competitions, who we meet in competitions, they're not gonna give one F about us. They are not gonna care that our mom's in the crowd. They're not gonna care that we didn't tap to this choke. If we don't tap, we're going to sleep. So we have to make sure that when we're being the hammer, when we're the guy ahead, make sure we're keeping our partner safe, but attacking them just like we would attack a person in competition, so that that person doesn't have any false sense of securities going into a tournament. Like if that black belt would have only tapped me twice, I would have thought I was significantly better than I was. I'd have went into tournaments with a much different mindset, rather than I need to work, I need to fight, I need to grind and claw for every single inch, because I'm not that good. I'm not that special. Like, this guy tapped me 7 times in a round. Like, I have no choice but to work and work and work. And so that lesson and lessons like that helped progress me so far in martial arts. And also, kind of along the same line as your teammates not liking you any less, is accidental knees, accidental kicks to the face. I've been kicked in the face probably more times than most jiu-jitsu practitioners on the planet. I remember being kicked by another high-level teammate so many times. I was so mad. I went up to one of the other instructors. I was like, man, does he have a problem with me? Does he not like me? Does he, like, man, what is this? He keeps, every time he tries to get his lasso, he's kicking me in the face every single time. Every single time, and he never says sorry. He doesn't even, there's no my bad, but my instructor explained, he was like, man, when I pass someone's guard, super irritating to deal with. I put my head in the chin, I'm driving pressure. No one's allowing me to do that, especially in the gym. Like, when we're fighting for competitions, we're fighting to be world champions. We gotta fight like we're fighting at Worlds. And so that allowed me to be able to get kicked in the face in competition and just keep going. If I was used to every time I get kicked in the face, I would stop and look away and oh, I need time. Sometimes we will need time. Sometimes we will need to take a break after something happens. But as long as it's an accident, which almost 100% of those things were, there's no reason for me to be upset with him for making a mistake. Just like I'm fighting for every single thing we do, so is he. And it's not, again, I'm not the center of the universe. It's not all about me. He's not kicking me in the face. He's just trying to get to his best guard. And his best guard is lasso guard. And I pass with my head down, and so my head's in the way of his foot. So his foot hits my head sometimes. Same way as if I'm trying to drive some shoulder pressure and I can't quite get the type of pressure that I want, I use the top of my head instead of my shoulder to drive that same pressure. And that honestly is worse than getting kicked in the face. But at the time, I didn't really understand that. I was like, oh man, this guy's kicking me, man. He doesn't like me, man. Does he want to fight me or something? And my coach immediately shut it down. He was like, stop it. Like, you're being oversensitive. You'll never be good with this type of mindset. And it was something that helped me a lot along the way. it helped me so much that it forced me to be properly prepared for the competition that I was in. Because when you train like you're fighting in the world championships, you're gonna fight like that in the world championships. Like we call it the switch. Some people can flip the switch on and off. I'm not one of those people. During training, if we're training for the worlds, I have to, or ADCC or any of my major tournaments, I've got to fight tooth and nail in practice. Because if I go to practice, if I loaf around, if I flow roll, I'm not gonna have good results in that competition. Some people can do that, you know, just like some people can, you hear a lot of MMA fighters talking about not sparring. Some MMA fighters can do that. Other MMA fighters cannot. So it's up to us to understand that, what our goals are and what we need to do to be successful in this martial art. And being prepared is the most important thing that we can do. Because everyone, when you get to the competition, absolutely everyone fights as hard as they can. They fight tooth and nail. No one's given an inch. But the person who's going to succeed is the person who prepared properly for that tournament. And not more importantly, but another thing, like leave your ego at the door, but everyone kind of knows this part, but we don't always embrace this, is like, yes, we're fighting as hard as we can. We're fighting tooth and nail for absolutely everything. We're not trying to give an inch. But what we cannot do, like absolutely cannot do, is allow our own ego or pride to get us hurt during training. I remember training with a world champion, a black belt world champion, and he was in my half guard, and he put his knee right in my sternum. And he put so much pressure in my sternum that I opened my legs. He did not move. I did not tap. I fought, I pushed, I tried to move. My sternum, I heard a crack in my sternum. He heard the crack. He stopped immediately. And I was so mad at him. Like, and he's one of my best friends, still is to this day. I was furious at him for cracking my sternum, until I realized that he did absolutely nothing to my sternum. I cracked my sternum. I was the one in control of tapping. He would have moved immediately. You know, like, he's working on a type of pressure. He doesn't know what I feel. He can't feel what I feel. If I felt the way I felt 100% of the time, I should have tapped. Like, I also should have been better at escaping, but again, I should have tapped then and then worked on how to escape and how to stay out of that position later, instead of being on the shelf for about a month and a half with a sternum injury, which is one of the worst because it affects your entire body movement. You know, mat time is key. We can't take mat time off for silly things like our ego or our pride, things that just don't matter. There's no room for that in the gym. There's no room for that for progressing in any martial art. You know, like, we have to be supremely confident. But in the gym, when we're working, it's kind of like the lab. Like, we're working in the lab. We're testing our skills, we're testing our ability. If you can't go to the lab to test your skills and your ability, then you're going to be at a significant disadvantage than everyone else. And so don't blame your teammates for you hurting yourself. Like, if I'm in a heel hook and I decide leg locks don't work, so I'm not going to tap to this heel hook, and my teammate pops my leg, that's on me. That's something that I need to figure out why I don't want to tap to teammates. Because tapping to teammates, absolutely, there's nothing wrong with that. You make a mistake, you fix the mistake, and you focus on don't making that same mistake again. But the goal is to not get tapped in competition. It's very important that we can train as much as possible so that we don't get tapped in the competitions that matter to us. Mat time is the most important thing. I got my black belt in 4 years. And one of the reasons that I got my black belt in 4 years was because I was able to put so much time in. My coach showed me so much love. I was able to train 3 times a day, just about all the 4 years. And that is about twice as much as most people train. So I was able to put 8 years of training into 4 years, 8 years of focus, dedicated training, rolling, sparring, positional sparring, working on specific things. And we always have a saying, the mats don't lie. Like I don't really understand the whole fake black belt thing, because it doesn't matter what belt you wear when you walk into a gym, the mats aren't gonna lie. If someone wants to put on a black belt and walk into a gym and get beat up by blue belts, then I don't even really understand what that, I can't really comprehend that at all. But the mats aren't gonna lie. They're never gonna lie. So make sure that we protect ourselves, protect our teammates, and fight like we're trying to win the world championships. There's a time and place for everything. Like sometimes we are gonna have to flow roll and be loose and be light, work on new positions, work on new techniques. But there's also a time to fight as if we're competing. Fight as if I don't know you and I'm gonna try to tap you as many times as I can. One of the times when I was training with a high level black belt at our gym, my instructor pulled us both to the side and reprimanded him for not tapping me as many times as he was supposed to tap me. Like in my head, the same thing. I was like, man, like I'm pretty good, you know, like it's not all about that. But again, my coach knows how good I am. He knows how good he is. And he knows when someone's not pushing to the levels that they need to push to. And so sometimes when he's saying something to someone else, he's also saying something to me. And he's telling me to pick it up. But what he's not doing is trying to dishevel me or trying to hurt my feelings or trying to do any of the other things that I kind of would think at the time. So super important. Leave your ego at the door and don't be sensitive. And it's easier said than done, but it's honestly not. When you look at jiu-jitsu as like a family, you know, brothers fight. Brothers can fight each other and go to dinner that same night and like nothing was wrong. It's kind of how jiu-jitsu should be. Like I've been in fights with wrestling teammates. I've been punched in the face by jiu-jitsu teammates. I've never held any of that stuff against them because we're a family. Like there's never been any real disrespect. Sometimes I would club someone's head too hard. They would be like, hey man, you hit me. And they would actually punch me. I'm like, no man, I didn't punch you. Like I could punch you, but I'm just trying to wrestle. Like if we're gonna wrestle, we have to wrestle at this certain level, because when you go to ADCC, it's a high wrestling based tournament. There's a lot of leg locks, but there's also significant amount of wrestling. So we gotta wrestle like how wrestlers wrestle in college. In college, I got into 4 or 5 fights in 1 year with teammates, and that's not good at all, but it's also not uncommon. Like I had a problem with being sensitive, so it happened to me maybe a little bit more than happened to other people, but it still happens. So we have to make sure that we leave all those problems that we had behind us, go to the gym and do our best to improve. Every day we train, try to get 1% better, try to make mistakes when you train. You make a mistake, fix the mistake, don't make the same mistake again. And that is gonna be what helps us get to the top levels of jiu-jitsu. And that's all. I'm gonna talk about that today. Make sure you follow me on Instagram, Coach DJ Jackson, and I'll be releasing more concepts soon.